Welcome everybody back here at Veil of Sound. It's our regular Sunday interview. I always say that we don't normally do regular interview partners. Sometimes that applies more than others. And I think if we talk with two guys from agriculture, then I am very right in saying, okay, this is not your average regular band. So I'm very, very happy to have Daniel, who we don't see at the moment, maybe later, and Richard here on the show. So, guys, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having us. This is a pleasure to be here with you.
Believe me, it's vice versa. First of all, for everybody, I've already asked the guys. I'm very, very happy to have two of them here. It's always difficult to get everybody on board. So Leah and Kern say their hellos from afar, but they have other stuff to do, which is total. Guys, first of all, the thing that we always do first, the pluck of the day. So you can think of a band or project, not your own, that you would like to pluck, that you think deserves more attention. I will go ahead and give you a moment to think. I want to pluck basically a project that involves two bands that you know because they they are going to release a wonderful record very soon. Ragana and Drows.
Yeah, yeah, we love those folks. We love all three of them, and that project. We saw them do the original version of it at Roadburn when we were there in 2024. Really, really cool, and yeah, just awesome people. We've toured with all three of them actually in on different tours. We toured with Ragana, I think summer 2024 and summer 2023. We toured with Kyle from with Strauss. So yeah, my shout out. I'm gonna do or my plug. I'm gonna do two actually. I don't know if that's allowed, but I'm gonna do it anyways.
I also did it, so just go ahead.
Cool, great. So Machuca, love them. They opened for us. They're based in Berlin currently. They opened for us on this past tour we were on in UK, Ireland, and a couple other towns in Europe, and they're incredible. We met them when they opened for us at Urban Spree just over a year ago in Berlin, and then they opened a few shows for us with Chat Pile in the spring as well. So at this point, we've played, I don't know, probably a dozen or so shows with them. Incredible people, incredible band. The first record is awesome. Currently, they're in the process of finishing writing their second record, which they're going to be recording soon, and I'm very, very, very excited about that. I haven't heard hardly any of it other than like a couple little riff ideas here and there, but knowing them, it's going to be amazing. So that's one of them. The other one that we love, that I love, I think everybody does, but I can't speak for anybody, is Senza from Pacific Northwest. They put out a record, an EP last year that I co-produced and I mastered as well. But they are also incredible people, like power trio, great players. They've opened for us a few times as well in the Pacific Northwest. And yeah, just really cool music and really good players and really good people. So those are my two shout outs right now.
So Dan, now you also have to give two.
Yeah, is this supposed to be, I'll go on video while I talk. Is this supposed to be like people that are not, like people don't know about? Like, or
well,
if
you say something like "Have a nice life," then of course these two guys should be even bigger than they are. But I think whoever watches this show knows "Have a nice life."
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, this is probably true for that too. But the most exciting band that I've seen that I just keep thinking about is we played with this band from New York called Yahweh Nailgun last year in Austin, and I saw them again when they were in LA. And they're just like the most exciting live band in the world right now, I think. I mean, we've seen a lot of bands that just kind of an unbelievable amount of energy and excitement. There's like this thing coming out of New York City right now with a few bands. We just played with this band Model Actress that's kind of doing not a similar thing in any like genre sense or anything, but just this kind of like reinvestigation of what it means to be in a rock band. which is really exciting to me. Like what can you do with guitar, bass, drums, keyboard, or vocals? There's just this and it's very, very invigorating. So yeah, that band in particular, it's incredibly heavy, um, while being, I don't know, light on its feet maybe. So yeah, that's the one that I would shout out. Although I'm sure your listeners are up on that.
Is that important for you that, bands have a certain heaviness?
No, definitely not. But
Because otherwise we would have to say LLNN from Copenhagen.
I
The heaviest shit on earth.
yeah, I don't know that band. What are they called?
LLNN.
LLMN. What does that stand for?
Don't ask them. If you ask all four of them, you get 6 different versions, and none of them is
cool.
true.
Okay, cool. No, I don't. I mean, heaviness is something that I mean, it's like, it's something that I'm interested in, but I think that, I'm not. It's not something that I don't think for any of us it's like a prerequisite. We don't listen to that. I mean, we don't listen to much heavy music as a band, really. I mean, we're interested in it and what you can do with it, but it's a flavor, But it's interesting what you can. But I think we're interested. Like, I'm interested in it for sure, and when a band can do it in a way that is moving, or I mean, heaviness is physical, right? So the thing that I like about yeah. So the thing that I like about it is that it has a way of, like, it literally pushes a lot of air around in a room. So there's a way that I think that manifests in like a heaviness can kind of transcend the intellect when you're listening, and just go straight into the body. And that's something that I'm really interested in. So I think it's particularly interesting to me when there's a band that's able to use techniques from heavy music in a way that pushes something around on a little bit of a deeper level for me, than not even a deeper level, but just a different level for me than just like the thrill of the heaviness itself.
But is then a band like Sun interesting to either of you?
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, guys basically take like the most simple technique that there is in rock and roll, and just turn it not up to 11, but up to 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're definitely one of the best bands. To me, there's no question about that. Yeah.
Richard, what would you say?
Oh yeah, I love Sun. I absolutely love Sun. I mean, there's a paper that I wrote that like analyzes.
Oh yeah, we should say that Mr. Richard here is like the intellectual musician, like doing a PhD stuff and stuff like that.
Did you literally write your dissertation on Sun?
Not on. They were one of the bands in one of the chapters. They're one of the ones that I used as an example. I kind of did like this deep analysis using spectrographic analysis, like fast Fourier transform, to discuss basically how like these conventional things like harmony and voice leading exist beyond the fretboard, through like the harmonics and things like this. Like, I won't bore you guys with that now. You can
actually not boring.
You can find it. But anyways, all this to say, I absolutely love Sun. And I think part of you talk about the thing, they're taking these sort of simple materials under the fingers, but what you get in the air is actually quite complex. And their mastery of that, I think, is, I'm even going to say it, underrated. I know that everybody's like, oh, well, Sun is, everybody knows Sun, whatever. But I think still underrated. I saw them, I drove a few, like, I don't know, 3.5 hours each way by myself, which isn't a huge deal, but to see them a few years ago on the Life Metal tour, I was still living in Boston at the time, and I had to drive down to New Haven to see them. And, there's horrible traffic and blah, 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 but oh my gosh, it was worth it. I mean, it's really just, it's what everybody says, you see them and it just like kind of like shakes your bones. I was there like right in the front, and it was just like, I like couldn't move the whole like 2.5 hour set. I was just like fixed in place. It was one of the most compelling things I've ever witnessed.
So now we've already talked so much about possible bands to listen and heaviness. I totally forgot that I had an icebreaker question for you, and that was listening to the new record and looking a little bit at ideas behind it. I came up with a question, and I'm not sure that either one will say yes, you do. But do either one of you know a New York hardcore band called Inside Out?
Oh,
No.
So, fun fact, it's the last band that Zach De La Rocca played guitar in before he turned to the vocalist of Rage
no
Against the
shit.
Machine. And
Whoa.
and I asked that because on that record, which is influenced by a lot of Krishna core bands, or who also influenced a lot of Krishna core bands, they have one track which I find there is a little connection to your band. The track title is called "No Spiritual Surrender." Would you say that this new record, that the spiritual sound is your proclamation of, okay, we won't go down without a fight. There is no spiritual surrender for agriculture?
It's oh, sorry. One sec. I just got home. One sec. I'm gonna turn off my
Yeah, yeah.
camera for a sec.
Let Richard do the talking.
That's a good question. What do you mean by that?
What I thought about is a lot of people think about spirituality as this institutionalized thing, which it first of all is not. But when I listen to your new record, when I look a little bit at the ideas behind it, especially on the second side, on the B side, I have the feeling as if you are showing a certain level of spirituality that has not been done in that kind of way in black metal in recent years.
Well, I think, and Dan is definitely going to have a very developed answer for you as well. But what I'll say is, I think we're getting better. So I'm happy to hear that, and thank you. I think we're getting better at um, kind of conveying through the music this type of broad spirituality that we're interested in. Like I think like all music is kind of spiritual. Like it's very much like a spiritual practice. It requires, to be a musician, it requires dedication, practice, a kind of faith in a way, right? Like when, especially when you first start playing an instrument, it's very difficult, and you just kind of have to have faith that eventually you're going to get to a point where you can kind of seamlessly transmit ideas from your mind through your fingers or whatever it is, depending on your instrument. Um, and Furthermore, there's also an element of fellowship, right? And fellowship is also kind of an important element of spirituality, at least in various religious practices. It tends to be. And for us, fellowship is, I think of fellowship not only as the sort of bond and connection we have with our listeners who are listening to the music, but also to our audience who are there live for it. And then, of course, the fellowship that we have amongst the four of us. So for me, yeah, all music practice in that way, or at least music practice that I engage in, has some element of the spiritual. And I think that this is something that we've gotten, as I said, kind of better at conveying through the music itself. I think it's probably obvious when you see us live, because so much of that can be transmitted sort of physically through just body gesture and facial expression and things like this. But yeah, I think we're getting closer, or maybe have found ways to transmit that through the music itself. But I know Dan's got an answer for you as well.
Yeah, and let me just apologize again. I was picking up my wife from the airport, so I'm sorry it took me.
Is he
I don't know
really
if you ever been.
apologizing for picking up his wife?
Yeah.
Well, I'm apologizing
Don't
because
don't let her
just
hear that, man. The beat's gonna be off.
she actually, honestly, I don't know if you've ever been to the airport in Los Angeles.
I
Like,
have.
it, yeah. So it's a true whatever. I mean, it's the opposite of a spiritual experience, except for maybe it's an experience of suffering.
Yeah, I just wanted to say
And
if your spirituality is rooted in masochism, then it's
Right. Yes, exactly.
or yeah. So anyway, it is like it. Yeah, I mean, it was a 2.5. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, but yeah. So I think first of all, it's a very good question. Um, the thing with with making. So first of all, I guess let me ask you, what is Krishna core? I've heard a couple of people say that about the record, but I actually don't know what that is.
About your record? Well, it
No,
can't be
like what does that
Krishna.
mean? Like,
Well, your record can't be Krishna core because it's not hardcore. It's
right.
something very different. Krishna core is bands like 108, like uh, Inside Out, also Shelter from the 90s. Old guys talking, um, whose music was equally rooted in Krishna beliefs, in like these Indian inspired kind of thinking about religion, and then at the same time, just being straight up hardcore.
Okay.
That's Krishna core.
Yeah. So okay, I see. That's helpful to know because I've heard a couple of people bring that up as the when people talk about what we're doing. I mean, to me, the specific antecedent for like what we're doing is actually like right there in like Norwegian black metal. Like, I mean, the thing that like I mean, not so much with like like Mayhem because that's kind of a silly band, although I really really like that band, but they're much more in the like especially like De Mysteria like much more in the realm of okay, well, maybe let me break it down and think about it this way, because this is how I come to think about it. So I think that a lot of like heavy music generally tends to have some kind of reference that's somehow more intense than what you might find in other kinds of music, right? So,
Yeah,
and a lot of the time that leans into fantasy. In the death metal side, sometimes people who don't like metal will ask me, "What's black metal? How does it compare to death metal or heavy metal?" And I think a lot of it has to do with, or part of it has to do with the sort of image pool or that we're drawing from.
yeah,
So black metal tends to lean into fantasy, right? So that's why like, Mayhem's talking about vampires all the time, and there's all the like, swordsmen and fucking, immortal and, all the like that kind of like medieval dark fantasy
yeah,
um Satyricon, I love that. Dark Medieval Times is a big record for me. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Um, but then and then obviously in like death metal, they're drawing from like fantasies of horror films and murder and stuff like that. But there's another sort of realm of intensity that seems to be drawn from just kind of like in the Norwegian like black metal from like I guess like pagan or
mhm,
Satanist beliefs, which to me which is actually much more interesting to me. So to me, like the bands that were really inspiring to me were I mean, Gorgoroth was just I can't overstate what a big influence, especially that record from I think it's 2007 maybe. Ad Satanis Dom whatever it is. It's some Latin title, but it's the one that has Prosperity and Beauty on it, which is to me like I think that's the perfect black metal song. It's fucking incredible. Um, and and that band, especially when Gal is writing the lyrics and singing, is like it has this. It's clearly spiritual music. I don't, they don't publish their lyrics, which a lot of the time with black metal is kind of good. Because it lets you have your own experience of
yeah,
what the music is about. So it's clear that it's pointing towards something in the realm of spirit, but it's not
mhm,
religious because it's not specific. And even if it's specific to them, there's no lyrics behind it. So you can impose your own or reflect or have your own spiritual experience reflected in the music. And I think that to me is like a lot of where the inspiration for what we're doing comes from.
mhm,
So it's or even with like Watain, which I think is like is another band that I really like. It's a little sillier maybe, but it's really great music, especially like their early stuff is really powerful black metal, and they're really serious about it. So that's like important to us that it's like so taking that kind of like we can take this music that is so intense that usually people kind of justify the intensity by leaning into fantasy, but we can actually like be like the real world is actually this intense, but we're not
yeah,
gonna, and we're gonna sing, and that's a part of it that's that intense, and that metal, if you will, is really to be found in daily life, and that's where the sort of spiritual argument that we're making comes in, is that the material that we're drawing from and the intensity is coming from what we experience every day. So the argument there is that it's actually not
silly to write a really intense song about like the reply on the new record, which is probably my favorite song on it. Um, is like is literally it's a very autobiographical song, and it's just about me going to the ocean thinking about the First World War. Um, and it's a very and but that's an intense experience, you know, and I would argue actually more intense than like fantasizing about murdering someone in your basement or fantasizing about vampires, right?
Yeah.
And so like it's not I'm not making a value judgment on that. I love that music too, but it's like the difference between, you know, leaving you know, we're trying to reflect something that's a little bit more lived in.
Yeah,
And I
and a
think the
little bit
other
more
side,
relatable, right?
yeah, well, yeah, I think it's relatable, but it's also like very much inhabited. It's an
Mm,
inhabited experience. I
mm,
think that's what I mean. Like we can all relate to the
yeah.
thrill of like Dracula, but it's a different kind of relating to it than it is to you know, going to the grocery store when you feel bad. You know, like which I think is actually like an interesting experience to kind of look into.
Yeah, and believe me, there
And I
are
think
moments when going to the supermarket can be like war.
that's what I'm saying, dude. And like I think like as metal as like heavy musicians, we shouldn't just cede the territory of normal experience to like sad indie rock. Because like to me like that becomes like plaintive or like therapy core or something
Mm,
like that. And it's like I you know I, there is something to be said for like looking into the intensity of normal experience and not trying to escape from it, but actually like sort of dwelling in it and without dwelling on it and reflecting that
mm,
in a sort of communal environment. So to me like that's the sort of like argument that we're making or the ground that we're holding. And like Richard said, like that's something that we bring into the live show where we're you know, creating something, a space for a lot of people to gather and have some kind of intense experience. Like people don't mosh at our shows. You know, they kind of stand there and just look at us. And that I think is it was something that was surprising to us at first until I think we figured out what we were doing, which is
mm.
like it you know, it's like even though we're playing fast and there's intensity, like that I think people want to just be in it.
I think
And
what a lot of people search in in your songs and in your shows is connection.
yeah, exactly. And that's like no, go ahead.
No, 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 I'm just nodding.
I and that to me is like that is the thing that I think all of us who are interested in music generally, but probably extreme music more specifically, like that's what we're looking for is we're looking for connection.
Mm,
And that can come through all kinds of different you can talk about all kinds of different things and find a place for people to connect.
yeah.
But I think that there is something, but I think we're trying to say like, let's like be intentionally spiritual about this and like try to set a ground where it's like actually really appropriate
To see the bigger
to
picture in the smaller things.
yeah, I think that's right. And I think so the you know, some of that has to do with the lyrics, but it ironically I think is also why the lyrics aren't that important, right?
In a way.
There's a, you know, like in my, you know, I mean, a lot of the lyrics on the second half of the record I wrote, and you know, those are, you know, draw from my own religious uh, um, practice, which is Zen Buddhism, right?
Mm.
But I'm not interested in like, but there's a saying in Zen that it's actually a sin to say anything, but you have to talk, right? So you know, but you can't really talk about it. And I think that's like part of maybe why I'm drawn to screaming lyrics because you can't understand it. It's kind of a loophole
Oh, it's
almost to
like
get
you're
around
saying
that.
you're using the vocal cords, but you can say, "Oh, nobody understands me," so it's very zen.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's just not supposed to make sense, right? We're trying to transcend. We're trying to be in a place where we're not using our thinking minds.
Well,
But that,
let's be
like that,
honest. I mean, like, how much of our daily lives make sense?
right,
But
right.
I have a question
That's actually
about the song, because there is something that you've just mentioned that I would like to attach to. You've indirectly mentioned a little, or you hinted a little bit at, like writing songs. I've heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that basically whenever you, Dan, or Ria come up with a track and you're like the main songwriters for the band, you come with a new song to band practice or rehearsal. You present it, you play it, and then you let the others basically tear it apart. Is that correct?
It's not that the other people tear it apart, it's that we all tear it apart together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
So, Richard, how
yes,
much fun is it to tear Daniel's songs apart?
Well, a lot of fun. Tear apart is kind of an easy way to put it, like in writing, but it really is this sort of collaborative thing where it's, Dan or Leah will bring something in that has, sometimes it'll be a riff, sometimes it'll be like a full thing, but it'll be like a thing. They'll bring something in and they'll play it. And then sometimes it'll be like, oh, and I'm thinking this for that part, or I'm thinking that, or other times it'll be like, here's the thing, like, what do you think? And sometimes we'll just like start jamming on it and we'll just start playing. Like, it really depends. Like over the past few years, it's like, sometimes, one of them will like have an idea. Oh, will you start by trying to play this? And then I'll be like, yeah, but I think this voicing is better here or that. Or other times it's like, yeah, I don't know your part, like play something. And it'll be that. So it's really like this kind of like hashing through, like in a lot of ways, it does kind of remind me a little bit of like almost more of like a sort of like what happens in composition seminar, in a way of like somebody brings something in and then everybody kind of throws the ideas out. And also, so that's one way of thinking about it. The other way of thinking about it is almost like a filter. Like it's like this funnel where like there's all these ideas and then it gets like filtered through this funnel where, Kern's style of drumming is very, very idiosyncratic to him, right? Like he's got his way of approaching things. So like, and there's this thing that happens sometimes where somebody will bring something in and be like, oh, is this to this or is it to that? Does it sound too much like this or that? And what I always say is like, look, by the time it gets through like the agriculture filter, like the four of us, whether you want to say tearing it apart or whether you want to say workshopping it or whatever term you want to use, it really does become an idiosyncratic, like it ends up just being a pure agriculture thing, because not only do we add our own parts and sort of hash things through that way, but then also there's this kind of like these like secondary and tertiary processes that occur whereby maybe I'll sort of add something and we'll record it on a voice memo, and then Dan or Leah will listen to it and be like, oh, and that'll give them an idea to do something. Oh, that's good, but maybe we'll save that for a different song instead. And it's just like this like ongoing sort of snowball thing that always starts as this kind of like idea that sometimes is very clear, sometimes is not, but there's usually clarity about at least like one element of it, and we kind of use that as a guiding principle, and then everything else gets assembled through it. But it's just like a really, I mean, it's like hard to explain a process like that in a way, because so much of it is based on individual intuition, but then also like this intuition that I've really felt us develop together over the years of like something happens, like, we've gotten used to a certain way Dan will count something, and I've got my way of like of internalizing that and responding to that. And there's the way that like Kern chooses to think about things, and like, to get a certain other sound from him, you have to say things in this different way. And it's all just like this language and intuition that we have amongst the four of us that exists in addition to the individual intuitions that each of us possess as musicians, composers, what have you.
By the way, Daniel, if you are writing a riff that turns into a song, I want to get a credit, like, or at least a hint, like, they'll sound.
I just find it's so much easier for me to like, it's like a fidget toy, you know what I mean?
All good, all good.
I'm just sitting here playing scales, man.
All good. I was just wondering, and I don't know who of you wants to answer that one. I was looking at the two sides of a record, and I tried to come up with an idea which band or artist I could use as a reference. For side B, it was easy. I mean, like, you have a song that's called Hallelujah, so it was easy. It was Leonard Cohen, right? With the first side, with side A, it was a little bit more difficult. And then it dawned on me my connection would be Black Flag, My War, because your album starts with My Garden. And I was like, I don't know why, but this Black Flag came upon me. Would that be two poles that you say, okay, that are two project bands that I would like to be in the middle of, that I share a certain admiration for?
I mean, I think it's like maybe like reflective of like the stuff that Leah and I listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't listen to anything in the like I've never gotten into punk or hardcore or any of that. Like it doesn't maybe I'll have like a moment with it someday, but I'm very, very, very interested in beauty and melody, which is like not in my experience the like highlighted elements in punk and sort of punk adjacent musics. So I don't really know Black Flag at all. Like, you know what I mean? Like I've like listened to Rise Above or whatever, but it's not I don't know the record you're talking about.
It doesn't
And
matter.
I'm just yeah. So, but Leah definitely does. She cares a lot about that stuff. Both of us are definitely like really into Leonard Cohen. Um, but I think like that maybe works for this record. I have no my feeling with agriculture is like um that there is a it there it doesn't feel like there's anything we couldn't figure out how to do, and all of it would end up sounding like us at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day. Like I kind of feel like this, the bands that I'm really interested in are the ones who are like I think this record is very, very different from our first record. And I think that like I hope that our next record is also really different, and it just will be because it like that's just like I think in particular I think have a really, really restless mind when it comes to music. Like there are certain through lines that I'm really interested in particular melody, and extended melody, and texture. I'm interested in distortion and
Mm-hmm.
texture. But like beyond that, like I don't know, like that feels like that could go in any direction. So I think that like in terms of like the this happens to be a very um uh I can't think of a better way to say this, bipolar record. I don't mean that in the sense of like the medical
I know what you mean.
diagnosis, that there's two poles to the
Yeah.
record. And I think it's very obvious when you listen to it that there's, where it's almost like a diptych, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
there's like two things and they're side by side, and we're like inviting a listener to like kind of
Mm-hmm.
um and we were a little bit nervous about that, actually. I remember when we turned the record in, we were just like, yeah, like I hope people get this. Like, because it took
I
me a
know what you
minute.
mean.
I
It's
had to listen.
different, right?
Well, but it's also, yeah, yeah, for sure it's different, but it's also just like you're asking a listener to do a little bit more work than you have in a normal record, where it's like you're asking someone to be like, hey, check it out. There's like actually really different things going on here. And that not just in the two sides of the record, but also in like I think the central piece, the sort of like the song that is the most definitive of like what this record is Bodhidharma.
Mm-hmm.
And that song has like the whole record contained in it. It's got this like these moments that are like it really is doing the like the start stop thing that I think is definitive of what this record is. I was actually thinking about how this is kind of our start stop record, because it has all of these like big peaks and big valleys, and so yeah, there's a little bit more attention that is being demanded of a listener, I think, and we were like hoping people would get that. Um, so I think for this record, it sounds like what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Um,
it wouldn't
but
for the
I
first one.
hope no, definitely not. The first one to me is like that's like we're figuring out what we do as a band record. Like
Yeah.
I like some of the songs on that record a lot, but there's some of them that I actually really at some point really want to re-record.
Okay.
There's this song on the first record called "Relier" that I just don't think we nailed in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I actually think it's like one of our best songs. We just like maybe that'll be on the third record. I don't know. Like we just got to do it again. Um, so, but yeah. So like this record, it feels like we're kind of figuring out what we're doing a little bit more.
I think one thing that is very important to understand about agriculture is that, and I think that to me shows very well in a song like Hallelujah. Um, and that's why I asked about the songwriting process. Um, Whenever I listen to the records, whenever I listen to the band, I have a feeling as if these are four people who are in it for the music and not for their personalities. Is that something that is important for you? The music and less personality?
What do you mean by personality?
Taking yourself as a songwriter too seriously, putting too much importance onto, okay, this is my song.
I mean, that's definitely something that like I've had to get over. Like, and I think that's a constant process. Like I always think I'm right, and I'm very infrequently right.
Mm.
And like that's just like a thing that you have to. I mean, but to me, that's like that is not to me that's just like definitive of like the human experience.
Yeah,
Is like
especially in a band with other people, right?
totally. But really, anytime you're in community with other people, I mean, it's the same as like being, in a marriage or like in a religious community or like in a business. Like, you just have to get used to being fucking wrong all the time. And like get used to just like it's this incredible thing of like I can be so like, dude, like sure. Like there's no question in my mind that I'm right. And I'm wrong. And that happens all the fucking time. And like that is a really, really helpful thing to bring into it. So, but that doesn't mean that like I don't put my foot down sometimes, like all of us do, and so like there are certain songs where it's just like there was a move that I made in Bodhidharma that Richard and I made that Leah didn't like, and there was just kind of a like in the studio, we cut something out of it, and that was a moment where I was just like, yeah, I'm not flexible on this, like that it has to be this way, and I feel confident that I was right, and that happens sometimes. We're with Leah too. So or with Richard, like there was a guitar solo that Leah and I were really bugging Richard about, and Richard was just like in an unbelievably kind way, just like expressed that he was not flexible. You know what I mean? So
But
so
let
it's
me
all
rephrase my question.
yeah.
Would you still agree with what I say? Like, okay, when you put your foot down, it's not for your personal ego, but because you think that is what the song needs.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, 100%. And like, I mean, that's like, I think the best way actually to think about the songwriting process is it's less about tearing it apart. Because at the end of the day, like if I bring in a song, like I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, but I always feel like I'm making the final decisions about like how it ends up working. There's a lot of like collaboration there, but I do feel like I'm able to like make final decisions. But it's just about workshopping the song until the song is right. Um, and that's a really collaborative thing, and it doesn't matter to me or to anybody whose idea was what. Like we just have to try everything.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think a band can function unless you have a genius songwriter, which unfortunately I don't think we do. But if you have like, if you're like like a Bob Dylan or a Leonard Cohen or something, where it's just like it's one guy's vision, and you just have to rock with that.
Yeah, but then it's also
Then
not
it's
a band. Then the other people are like
exactly
backing
well because
musicians.
that's the thing. Exactly, and that's the thing with like I mean you see this that's why the band is such a magical format, right? I mean that's the thing you see with the Beatles, right? Or with maybe Pink Floyd's a better example because like, that band recorded some absolutely fucking amazing records. But like David Gilmour's solo stuff is like unlistenable. I'm sure Richard disagrees. But you know, like
Those
that's
little
because it's a
side.
band.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Um, yes, and of course it is a band, but this there is this nice, in your case, really well working conflict between the band and the musician, because again, I come back to Hallelujah. It's one of those tracks which I mean, like there is a first half of a track and there is a second part of a track, and those two are like that doesn't really, to most people that wouldn't work. Let's put it like that. In the agriculture universe, it works.
Oh, good. Yeah.
But I think for most other bands, it wouldn't, you know. And then there is also the other way around, which I found very interesting because, it's like, again, bipolar is maybe a good example for that. Sometimes you have a song like Hallelujah, which ends harshly. But then you also have tracks like Micah 5:15 a.m., where it's all of a sudden a very mellow, nice outro. Is balance something that is important for you as a band? Balance in a song, balance on the complete record?
Yeah, I think.
We,
Richard, go on.
All right. For me, this is also, this relates to your previous question about individual ego versus sort of whatever versus serving the music. I think it's always about balance and what is, and I think like ultimately, I mean, I try and always be of the mind that I have to remind myself. I guess an ethic that I try and live by as a musician is that I'm here to serve the music, right? Like, and things that happen with music are powerful and interesting, and I think a lot of what happens is kind of not premeditated, right? Things just happen, and especially as we're talking about here, a band format, Pink Floyd, the Beatles, whatever. Like, you have these situations where kind of magic happens because in an ideal situation, yeah, you have people not motivated by personal ego, but rather by their personal compositional intuition. And there is a difference there, I believe.
Yeah.
You can feel like you're right. You can feel like you're right because your compositional intuition is telling you that you're right, and you can also feel like you're right simply because you don't want to listen to somebody else. Those are two different experiences, right?
Yeah.
And two different motivations. Apropos the question about balance, I think that ultimately a developed, whether you want to call it compositional intuition or musicianship or musicality or whatever you want to call it, I think ultimately one of the important elements of that is a sense of balance. Now, everybody's sense of balance is going to be slightly different, right? People like to hear things in different ways and things like that. But balance is something that we do talk about. We talk about the sequencing of the record a lot when we're working on a record. We talk about that. That is to say, how one thing is going to flow into the next. That is to say, we're often concerned with balance on various levels, sort of zoomed in, zoomed out. I think about it on when it comes to like the minutia as well. When I think about the way things are in the studio while producing a record, sort of how small things add up and are maybe going to affect the listener down the line. Think about it in terms of solos, in terms of voicing, all these types of things. So yeah, I think that we all approach balance in our own ways, but I will say that's something that I feel is pretty special about this band is that we all seem to be really concerned with balance in that we just seem to be at places in our lives where we've thought about music enough that that's something that's entered all of our individual intuitions. And of course, then we have to play that out with the four of us and blah, blah, blah. And we have to come to some sort of conclusion every time. But yeah.
But yeah, Daniel, your idea on balance in the band or
yeah,
on the records, I'll go like that.
It's the most important thing to me, actually, other than the like riffs hitting. But like to me, like the goal is still if you're trying to make a record, then that and especially if you're writing songs that don't have like traditional song forms,
Mm.
like you just have to think about how the whole thing works, and you have to think about it as like sculpting a period of time that's kind of like symphonic in length, right? We're writing a 46-minute piece of music basically, and it has to, and that's what we're looking for. So the balance is, it's the thing that I obsess over. I think to the point where like Kern at some points is like, guys, we have to stop talking about this because like I can get really, really fixated on it. And it's not, and it's different for different um, settings, right? Like like our live set is different from our record because the form needs to do a different thing, right? We're moving people in a room, and that's different from like, expecting people to listen on headphones or, in their car or whatever. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that that's like a big place where also Richard and I, both we're studying like the European classical tradition, which is, I mean, people talk about how that, I mean, I read an analyst and a critic in that tradition talking about how music is audible time. And I don't think that's really how pop music works, but I do think that's how classical music works. Is that it's like it's like in science you'll put an indicator in to see if there's something present in this, and it if there's a certain chemical or compound present, the solution turns a certain color. I think music is like that for time. It colors time in a certain way. And that's kind of, I think, what we're doing. And I think that's the main thing that I took out of my compositional training was like a real appreciation for extraordinarily complex arrangements of time, and the way that that plays with memory and other sort of intellectual processes, while also sort of avoiding language and narrative. So in particular, like I was really, really obsessed with the Germans were so good at this. So I was really obsessed with German music in college and graduate school. So in particular with I guess Mahler's Austrian, but with Brahms and Mahler and Beethoven, and especially in the for Beethoven the string quartets and Mahler the symphonies, where you just have these arrangements of about an album length worth of material, and it's incredibly complicated. The highs are really high, the lows are really low, and there's it's hard to listen to that kind of music in headphones or in your car because of how big the dynamic range is. And I think that's something that we really bring into our music. Like, people have talked a lot about how there's stuff that's so quiet and stuff that's so loud, which is unusual for pop music, but actually really, really idiomatic and normal in classical music. You expect it.
Mm.
And so I think that like that has a lot to do with how we're thinking of form
Mm.
and the time scale we're thinking on, and how things develop in slow ways. So to me, like a lot of agriculture is balancing that impulse with trying to write songs that like work as songs. And depending on like the material we're working on at a given time, one of those impulses tends to win out, you know?
Mhm. Something that also struck me while I was preparing the interview, and something that I wanted to ask is, and Richard already hinted at it, you are four very different individuals. Um, and also, as Daniel already mentioned, with of course different influences. I'm very sure that some of the nearly classic rock elements in side A of a new record might be a little bit, for example, might be a little bit more from Leah's side. Mm, because there are some moments when I felt like, okay, this could be the metal version of the Eagles, um, which is to me not a bad comparison, first of all.
Yeah, the Eagles. If it's the Eagles, it's me. If it's like that's more like my shit.
Okay, but
Yes.
you know what I mean, right? There's like all four of you come from different backgrounds, and is that maybe also the magic of agriculture, that there are four people with very distinctly different backgrounds who come together and make music that they like?
Of course. Yeah. I think that's a huge part of it. Um, Absolutely. I mean, it's that situation where people talk about, oh, it's almost like plays into this kind of like classic utopian ideal of like,
Hmm.
oh, ideally everybody has like in a society, like everybody has their own ideas and they add their own ideas to make society as strong as it possibly can and somehow have a way of agreeing just enough that things kind of work. And like that's kind of what's happening with agriculture. I mean, like obviously as with all interpersonal examples, there's of course, struggle at times and whatnot, but I think that's what we're always sort of striving for is um it's really important to honor and respect the perspectives of others. Not only just ethically, I think it's important, but artistically, there's a lot of value in it because it just means that if there's something that you don't know or you're not familiar with, somebody else is going to cover that.
Mm.
And and when you open yourself up to that, I think the possibilities are so much more, the realm of possibilities is so much more vast. And that's really important. And you could say that about musical ideas, so like parts. You could say that about playing style.
Hmm.
You could say that about the sort of a more abstract notion of what you
Hmm.
think music is. But to have, yeah, like four pretty distinctly different ideas with enough in common. I think about that sometimes, like where we overlap, and there'll be things like, I'll like put something on in the car or something, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this is for sure going to hit with Leah. Like Leah and I are going to have a great moment listening to this. The other two are not going to care for this. Like there's enough, like these points of overlap, and I think
Yeah.
everybody, like we all have. It's sort of like fun when you discover like a new point of overlap you have with somebody because sometimes that can be actually more surprising than the than the things that you don't have in common. I think those are tend to be more obvious. But
Mm.
to answer your question more directly, yes, I think that's extremely important, and I think that that's a very valuable part of the dynamic that we have amongst the four of us.
I don't know why, and I know my mind works in crazy ways, but when you were talking about overlap, there is just one very simple meme that came to my mind. Do you know the meme which connects three circles? And in one of the circles it says like 4-year-old boy. In the other it's psychiatrist, and in the third one it's the Backstreet Boys. Do you
I
know
haven't
what's
seen
the
that.
do you
I
know
know
what
the
is the
format.
do you know what is the overlap in the middle? Tell me why.
Yeah, there you go.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Sorry, it's just the nerd talking.
No, it's great.
Um, I have one more question, and then we come to the infamous quickfire round. And that is for voices. Um, I've randomly, or not randomly, seldom heard a band which combines two so distinctly different voices. Richard, would you agree that that is also part of the magic? Because, like Daniel can sound like straight out of Laurel Canyon, and Leah can sound like the pits of hell. I don't know. I mean, I know it also works the other way around. Both can do both sides. But is that also like for you, Richard, the magic of agriculture?
Yeah, that's a big part of the magic for sure. I mean, again, it's just more options for how the material is presented. It's more perspectives. And yeah, the tone. I mean, I spent a long time thinking about the tone of both of their voices in the studio working on the records. And like, yeah, absolutely. That's hugely important. And I think, yeah, I think there's something so special about that. Like their screaming voices sound totally different. Their singing voices sound totally different. The way they even approach, like their technique is even totally different. And the way that I mic them for to recording the vocals is like
Yeah.
totally different. And I have like sort of Leah's collection of mics, and I have like the sort of Dan collection, and there's just like a whole thing, and it's just like it just plays into these differences and how we try and capture those. So yeah, absolutely, I think that's a hugely important part. Yeah.
One thing that just crossed my mind that I wanted to ask a little earlier already. I don't know who said it. I think Daniel said like thinking of writing not single tracks but one long piece that then is the record. Have you ever considered doing something like, for example, Bell Witch, like writing an 85-minute piece of music?
No, but like that, like largely just because that's like I look, that's one of my favorite metal bands. They are so fucking good.
Yeah.
But as a
That would also be a band that still deserves more attention.
couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. Yeah, that is a really incredible, incredible band. Actually, I've never seen them live. I'm like pretty desperate to at some point whenever they tour again.
One of the best Joe
But
Burns set ever was Mirror Reaper in full.
God, I would. Oh, fuck, I love
Nice.
that record so much. Man, we should. Be really fun to play with them at some point.
Yeah.
Anyway, but like, I will say that like it would I would be I really really respect the artistic decision to not split that up. But as a
Mm.
listener, it is not that frequent where I have 85 minutes to just focus on something, and it would be awesome like to like be able to like start from somewhere, like to have it divide like just from the listener experience. I would love to be able to like go to track three, even if they were each 25-minute long
I
tracks.
know what you mean.
It would be awesome to be able to like go to track three because I know that like I can stay in the car an extra 5 minutes to listen to track two.
Yeah.
So I mean that's so like to me like the record we just made is 46 minutes of music, but like we divide it up in the way that we do in order to like provide a listener with like um, convenient bookmarks. Like, and to me, that's just like that's less of a the only thing about that gesture is it's sort of like a nod to like the way that like I like to listen to music
Mm.
more than anything else. You know what I mean?
I do. I was just looking something up. Yeah, I got it. Um, I mean, as much as Bellwitch take the stuff to different levels, there is just one German band who outdid Bellwitch 2 years ago when Bellwitch came out with the first part of the Clandestine Gate. And there is this German band called Eremit, like Hermit in German, Eremit. And they released a record which has 3 tracks, 2 hours and 12 minutes.
Yeah, that I mean that's long as hell.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
Um, but
I mean,
that's just like,
I think that's really. I remember Arvo Pärt put out a choral piece that's like yeah an hour and a half long or something, and
yeah,
it's just like like in a concert setting that's awesome, but it is difficult in a
totally.
it because to me it's like it's almost like a novel that you can't put a bookmark in,
I mean,
you
like
know?
when
So
you
it's
listen to that stuff on vinyl, then you always indirectly have a bookmark because the vinyl side is what,
exactly
33,
that,
34
that's
minutes.
that's how I think about it is like I you know it's like we're just building that in but also like in terms of long form like that, it's interesting because the relationship between time and speed is interesting.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
one of my favorite composers is Morton Feldman, who famously writes extraordinarily long pieces of music. He's famous for his 6 hour string quartet. Um, and but most of his late career music, which is that's one like I should have also plugged that like just like if anyone who's listening hasn't spent time with Morton Feldman, maybe the place to start is he has a piano piece called For Benita Marcus or Palais de Marie. Those are some of the easier ones, but for Philip Guston or for John Cage, I mean these are just some of the most wonderful pieces of music I've ever heard. But they're incredibly slow. It's very difficult to so usually and with the band I don't know about the German band you brought up, but certainly with Bell Witch, like it works at a slow tempo.
Yeah.
So we tend to play pretty fast. So if you're playing slow, it's easier to do things for longer. When you're playing faster, it's fatiguing on the ears in a different way. So it again has to do with like how tempo relates to time. And
I mean,
so
imagine doing
to
what you do and then turning that, still doing the same thing, but turning it into an 85-minute song. It would just be
I
overpowering, I would say.
I think it would suck, honestly.
That's what you
Like
say.
it just like I think that like it's exhausting to listen to fast music for a long time. Like
Mhm.
it's good to have um, it's it's good to have different types of music take different work with time in different
Yeah,
ways.
yeah,
So you can sit for 2.5 hours and just sit in sun or something like that, but you don't want to sit for 2.5 hours and listen to mayhem, probably.
no,
um
no,
you know and I think that's just it's just because 2.5 hours of one music feels very different from 2.5 hours of another music.
totally, totally.
um, so I mean, that to me, that's what duration comes down to. And I also think, like, as I've gotten older, I've gotten less interested in things that are extreme. This has nothing to do with the bands you just brought up. They're incredible, but for our music, I'm not interested in doing things that are extreme because they're extreme. Like
Mm.
there's so much like if you're interested in like it's just not what our band is doing. Like we do certain things that are intense, but I don't think that like it's why I don't like think of us as like an experimental band because we're not experimenting so much with anything that, we're not pushing at boundaries really. We're just doing things that feel appropriate to what the music is. And I think that like that's a different kind of impulse than if you're doing something that is meant to provoke some kind of discomfort in a listener. And I mean, it's just not what we do, you know?
I think, I mean, like there are moments with agriculture where you push things, but it's never for pushing's sake. It's not
Exactly.
doing something different to do something different, but it's doing something different because that track at that moment, maybe also in that setting, in a live setting, it can be different than the record studio. At that moment, that track needs that thing. But it's not just to
That's
like,
how
let's be experimental for experimental's sake.
I think that's exactly right. And I love, but that's not to say that like there is like I think all of us have our background in experimental music traditions, and that's something that it's a place that I have a lot of respect for, and I'm really and I'm certainly like music that I'm the most interested in still probably sits there, but it's just not what this project happens to be doing.
Gentlemen, first of all, thanks for all the insight into the new record and into the way that agriculture in general works. For everybody,
Thanks.
please do not forget to listen to Spiritual Sound, which came out October 3rd via the wonderful and beloved Flenser Records. But the two gentlemen, of course, cannot leave a Veil of Sound interview without going through the infamous quickfire round. Normally, I like to explain that I already did, and then Daniel said to one of my examples, "Oh, that's a good one." And it's one of my classic examples. So I'll ask both of you, AC/DC with Brian Johnson or AC/DC with Bon Scott? And Daniel goes first.
Yeah, controversial take here, but it's the later AC/DC. It's Brian Johnson.
Mhm. Okay. Richard?
Same. I remember when I was 16 getting in an argument with somebody about this because I was like, it has to be Bon Scott. That's the only. But it's like, no, I listen to the later stuff more. Like, I think like, yeah, I agree with Dan on this one.
Yeah, I mean, like, of course, Bon Scott is iconic.
Yes.
But let's be honest, there is a reason why Back in Black is the best-selling AC/DC record of all time.
Absolutely.
I mean, to me, that's actually the whole reason for me is that I think that like that is just it's like a whole it's a perfect album. It's so
Yeah.
goddamn good.
It's the
It's just
poppiest record they ever put out without trying to be pop.
Yeah.
it's incredible. I mean, the riffs are so also like straight up Hell's Bells is the song that made me become a musician. I'll never forget hearing that song for the first time and just hearing that riff. And I mean it's not an exaggeration. Everybody has this moment who does music, but it completely rearranged my life when I heard the just like now 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 now. I was like, that's the coolest thing. I've still never heard anything as cool. Like it's like a version. It's like the Crazy Train riff, except without like being a little cartoonish. It's just like it's amazing. But yeah, it's incredible.
So whenever you guys are in Hamburg, you should try to be in Hamburg when you can visit a football match by St. Pauli, because there the bands march onto the field listening to Hell's Bells.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah.
And when St. Pauli scores a goal, they play Blur's song too.
Oh, nice.
Are you from Hamburg?
No, I'm not. But I love the city. My wife lived there for some time, and we still have friends and family over there, and so we visit the city regularly. And if it wasn't for the shitty weather, it would be the best city in Germany.
Sick.
We've been talking about Sun quite a lot, so I give you two of their records. Which one would you rather listen to right now? Live Metal or Black One?
Black One.
Black One.
Mm-hmm. I have to say right now I would rather listen to Live Metal because I'm already excited for the new Anna van Houtwolf record. And,
yeah. I mean, the real answer is Monoliths and Dimensions. That's
interesting. It's interesting.
That's the greatest
because
one, in my opinion.
It's interesting. I also like that record a lot, but for a lot of the fans, they respect it, they recognize it, but a lot of the fans would say some of the even earlier stuff. But I would agree with that. One of the bands that released on the Flenser before you came to the Flenser is Panopticon. Some of the most in some of the most in. Yeah, there is. I think at least one Flenser record with Panopticon. Yeah,
I didn't know that. You knew that, Richard?
Yeah.
The old folks talking, Daniel. You know. I'll give you two of their records, and I think if I remember correctly, neither of them are on the Flenser. Kentucky versus Scars of Man on the Once Nameless Wilderness.
Kentucky.
Don't know those records. I don't really know his music very much.
Mm-hmm. But can you understand that some people connect Panopticon with some of the things that you are doing? The very mellow things and the very hard things?
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
You've been talking a lot about classical music, so I thought, okay, which stuff could I give them? Let's start with some of my favorite Russian composers. And I know that they're a little apart when it comes to time, but Shostakovich versus Rachmaninoff.
Shostakovich.
Shostakovich for sure.
Hmm?
Yeah, no, not even to me. Those composers aren't even doing like the same.
That is
just
true.
A completely different.
It's kind of like it's kind of like the Chopin versus Liszt question. The answer, of course, is Chopin.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah,
nothing against Liszt, or like it must be Chopin.
Yeah,
I would say it's like the Eagles versus the Beatles.
Wow. Okay. Huh. Cool.
There are some Eagles tracks that are amazing, but as a whole, it must be the Beatles.
I mean, Rachmaninoff has some pretty melodies too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I have to say that, you know, the Beatles also put out some pretty shitty stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great song. That's a great song.
That's an incredible song. It's an amazing song.
But we're all basically have been overexposed to it, haven't we?
Doesn't matter.
I suppose.
Incredible song.
Let's disagree on this one. There is some noise rock element in agriculture. And so I'll give you one of the greatest noise rock bands ever, Sonic Youth, versus one of the most interesting noise rock bands ever, Elizabeth Color Wheel. And do not think about the latter one because it's a Flenser record. Just which one you would rather listen to right now.
ECW for sure. I never really got the Sonic Youth thing. I know that it's really important to a lot of people who I love, but I've never connected to it.
Richard?
Yeah, for sure. I also have never gotten the Sonic Youth thing. I feel like an obligation to say Sonic Youth because for a lot of people they're so fundamental and everything, but I just love the sound of Elizabeth Color Wheel. Like I think that's a great sounding band. And for me, it was just the first time I heard them, I was like, oh, this is cool. And like with Sonic Youth, I've always been trying to sort of figure out what the thing is.
I think with Sonic Youth, it's the way that I think Sonic Youth cannot be an acquired taste because I think it's so much related to when it was released.
Makes sense.
I still
I think that
remember listening to some of the mid-period Sonic Youth records when they came out, and I was just blown away. That's something completely different.
That makes total sense.
But I know what you mean. Yeah. Coming back to the classical thing, many people say that Gustav Mahler's Kindertotenlieder are basically unlistenable. Would you agree or disagree?
Disagree.
I don't know those pieces.
Very, very, very sad. Some of the heaviest, deepest stuff that Mahler ever put out, and the idea behind it, it's basically it's music made for children's funerals.
Right. Yeah, I'm completely unfamiliar with those pieces.
Yeah, the Kindertotenlieder are just like devastatingly gorgeous. Perhaps also, I don't speak German, so like that I think probably helps in that way. Like, but I don't. I mean, I don't know. It's just those are such remarkable pieces that uh, it's an interesting point though. In a seminar, we discussed this for a long time, like a whole week. We kind of talked about what is the value in listening to sad music and blah blah blah. And this was one of the ones that we. I know this is not the discussion for our bonus round right here, but I have thought about. I do think the fact that I don't speak German is part of it, but also like I just find the music so compelling that it's yeah, it's fine. It's fine with me. I just deal with it because I love the sound of it.
Uh, I know I shouldn't give my 2 cents, but I still do. I think there is a lot of value in listening to sad music because let's be honest, some of the best songs ever written come from a sad state of mind. I mean, if sadness didn't inspire musicians to create so much great music, then we wouldn't have Jeff Buckley. I mean,
Yeah.
um, last classical thing before I turn to pop culture. Brahms versus Beethoven.
Beethoven.
Yeah, I mean for sure. I
There,
listened to Brahms maybe, but Beethoven's a better composer.
what I found interesting, and that was something that I mean, I don't listen to a lot of classical music. I have to admit that. But a few months ago, in one of my favorite podcasts, which is about history, and one of the guys all of a sudden did an episode on one of the works by Beethoven and how it basically changed everything because it was so different. I would have to look up which piece it was. It was one of the symphonies. Um, and he just described it very clearly and he put it into context and also into a historical context. And I was blown away by it. And then I sat down and listened to some of his earlier works, some of the contemporary stuff by other people. And then I listened to that one piece. And then all of a sudden I got it.
Yeah, I mean, and we've been talking about Mahler. I mean, Mahler doesn't exist without Beethoven. Certainly without Beethoven's ninth. I feel like
Yeah.
Beethoven's ninth leads pretty directly into Mahler, and in a lot of ways, at least the Mahler we know. Would a man named Gustav Mahler still lived and written music? Yeah, probably, but it would have sounded a lot different.
Yeah, definitely. Pop culture. I don't know how, but I really don't know how I came to that question, but there is something about your band and about the new record that to me sounds green. I'm not a synesthete, don't worry, but there is some kind of greenish thing about some of the stuff. So I came up with two movies that both have the word green in their title. The Green Hornet versus The Green Room.
I've never seen The Green Room.
Then you should check that one out. Daniel?
I'm going to go with the Green Knight. A
That's
phenomenal
Transformers,
movie that
isn't
came
it?
out No, it is not. It is a wonderful, wonderful movie that came out that's a sort of retelling of the famous classic tale, The Green Knight. It's beautiful. It came out 4 or 5 years ago. It's one of my favorite movies from recently.
I'm just looking up The Green Knight. I haven't.
It's incredible.
I
It's a
think
great
I've
movie.
seen that one, but I'm not sure. And last one, and that is because of one of Richard's answers, because he used the word fellowship so often. So I'll give you two of the Lord of the Rings movies: The Fellowship of the Ring versus The Return of the King.
Return of the King.
Yeah, I mean that's what like someone who's like kind of a casual would say for sure.
This is Dan's
But
specialty. Dan is like deep in this world, so you're going to get the real answer from him.
got the fucking
By the way,
sword right here.
by the way, I just looked it up. The symphony that I was talking about and that was used in the podcast is Beethoven's Third.
Oh, okay.
It's a banger.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
So Dan, now tell us why it should be The Fellowship of the Ring.
They're just different movies. The Fellowship is, I mean, The Return of the King is like a more exciting film and has like the best war sequence ever shot, for sure. The Battle of Pelennor Fields it's unbelievable. There's just nothing else like it. And I've seen it more times. I think I've seen that movie like probably 75 times. But The Return of the King is so much more like Tolkien. You know what I mean? The Fellowship. Fellowship is like the one where you really get into like the stuff that I think that like the immersive lore and the history that's such a big part of the trilogy. And even missing like some of my favorite, characters from it or whatever, like, you miss the Tom Bombadil thing. Like you really get a sense of like the grit of Middle Earth. The Bree sequence is so good, and then all the stuff in the Shire, like they really, especially in the extended version, like they really dwell in the Shire for a long time and like let you know how cool it is there. And I think that's a really, really, really special. I love that one so, and also they just did it so well. It's such a well-made film. Like all of the props look incredible. Rivendell looks amazing. Like, and it still looks good. It's crazy. It's like that, like from that era, it's like, we're in a place now where like movies from 5 years ago look like dog shit.
Yeah.
But like that magical era of like 98 to 2005, where like the Matrix trilogy came out, the Lord of the Rings trilogy came out, is just like, it's perfect. It's the best, in my opinion, it's the best that movies ever looked, at least epics, other than like, when they had infinite budgets with like Lawrence of Arabia or Dr. Zhivago or whatever.
Yeah, but even in that moment, you have enough things that just simply don't look real. For me, the question is easy to answer because it depends a lot on my mood. If I'm in for storytelling, then nothing can beat the Fellowship of the Ring. If I just want to see some action, then it will simply be The Return of the King. But
definitely, I agree.
It depends a lot on the mood that you're in. Daniel, I have to ask, how do you like The Hobbit as a trilogy?
It's unwatchable.
Thank you.
I've never seen all of them.
Me neither. And I still don't understand how you can turn a 200-page book into a 12-hour movie.
I mean, you can't. That's it. I mean, what they should have adapted was the first half of the Silmarillion, or like that would have been really good. There's really compelling stuff in there. But yeah, whatever.
So before we nerd out too much and people think we turn into a movie podcast, don't worry. We still will always be a music podcast and a music show. So first of all, thank you guys. Daniel, don't behead yourself with that thing. First of all, thanks for the music. That is very important to say, because the Spiritual Sound is a demanding record, but it's also a very rewarding record. And that is music that we don't have enough of these days. So thanks for that. Now, one of you has the chance for final last words.
Thank you very much for having us. This was a real pleasure talking to you, and your questions were excellent. This was a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
So enjoy the rest of your day, and hope to see you back on European stages sooner than later. Thanks.
Yeah. Where are you based?
Central Germany. If you fly into Frankfurt, I'm 30 kilometers east. 25 to
See
30
you next.
kilometers.
Yeah. See you next time
Hope
we're
to
over
see.
there. Are you coming to
Hope
Roadburn?
so. Yes, of course I am.
Okay. Yeah.
Great.
So we'll see you at Roadburn.
See
Come
you
say
at
what's up.
Roper. Let's have a drink. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.